Ahoy the lads, hello guys, it's Michael in the Irish Mag here. So my first ever episode guys, so my first episode is probably just going to consist of me just sort of giving you a background on how I became a fan of Newcastle. Um, my best memory, sort of just sort of my influence and me becoming a Newcastle fan. I will maybe just briefly, if I have enough time, I don't want to make these episodes too long because I know a lot of people don't want to hear, it's a guy talk about his club. We can all do that. But yeah, so for me, just going to start off, well, I was sort of beaten into being a Geordie. There's plenty of pictures. My mum has a picture of me in a Man United top, and then my brother, who's sadly not with us anymore, was a Newcastle fan, and he played for, again, I'm from a local town called Newcastle, and he played for, again, what would have been the Magpies, so just a different variation, obviously not as a reputation that our club has, but yeah, so that's where it all started. So he supported the tune, and then one of his best friends supported the tune, and they sort of both beat me into it in a sense. I don't regret it at all now because when you think about it, like United fans don't have the passion, in my opinion, that Newcastle fans do. And as I say, it's the one city club up there. I've been over many a times, and if my fiance would move, I would definitely move over in a heartbeat. But yeah, so that would be sort of the brief introduction. As I say, I would have been beaten into it over many years, and then obviously I support now Newcastle, and I'm a diehard fan, and it's been a tough old patch now being a Newcastle fan. So yeah, we'll get there in the end. I think, lads, we definitely will, especially if this all goes through, and we're all hoping well it does. But um, yeah, so just to give a brief introduction, that's how I sort of became a Newcastle fan and been a fan for roughly about 22 years. I was beaten into it quite young, so I can't really regret it, and my legacy will live this if my children will support Newcastle, even though my fiance's family are Scouse, so that'd be a tough one to argue with the children when they're older. But yeah, so yeah, so in regard to like my first sort of match, because I'm from Ireland, quite surprisingly, Newcastle come over here for pre-season quite a lot. Um, so for me, I did get to see them. My first game, excuse me, would have been when my dad took me down and they were playing Shamrock Rovers. Now this would have been where Joey Barton was captain, so it would have been the year we went down. I saw them play. And that would have been my first official match to seeing them live in the flesh. And I saw the likes of Duff, Joey Barton. Didn't see Gibbs, unfortunately. Gibbs, I've met Shay Given before. I was very fortunate to meet Shay Given, and he's an absolute legend and an icon, and my favourite ever player that's played for the club. So, quite ironically, he holds the most appearances for the club as well. But anyway, yeah, so I would have saw them, and I think we beat Shamrock Rovers that day like 4-0. So it was good to see. My first official game at St James's was when me and my current fiance went over to Newcastle, and we were in the Championship. It was under Rafa's term. We beat Reading 4-1. That was at Dwight Gale, amazing, absolute wonder goal of that on the free kick from like 30 yards out. I was sitting in the Elisa's end, sure, and he scored it in the Gallagher end, didn't he? So I didn't get to see that goal. So that would have been my first official game at St James's, and I couldn't have picked a better one. It was amazing, and I don't think anybody can, like any fan that's been to St James's, and St James's is rocking. It's like even saying it now, I'm getting goosebumps. There's no place like it. So for me, it was just to sit, like it is, that moment where you're walking through the stand, you get through the turnstile, you're walking up the seats, the stairs to go into your seat, and you just see the pitch for the first time, and yes, as I say, it's a goosebumps. It's a dream come true, and it's amazing to sort of just even to experience it. Um, so excuse me, guys. Sorry, I got a wee bit of a dose here. So don't know where it came from. A lot of people would probably be saying Corona. Unfortunately, it's nothing to joke about. But yeah, that would have been the first one. And as I say, I could rant and rave and how amazing it was to walk up through the stairs and sit. We were sitting in the corner of the Lisa's end as well, me and my fiance. So we were close. Like I was so close. I was quite surprised I got seats that close, considering we have so many season ticket holders, and I thought that would have been somebody's seat, but apparently me and my missus got it, and it was actually quite a good game. We were sitting beside my son and my dad, and the dad was relatively young in my opinion. Like he must have been in his maybe mid 20s to the high 30s, or yeah, high 20s to maybe early 30s, and he had his wee lad with him. And to be honest, his wee lad was showing more passion than me and the father combined, and we were shouting like I was giving the ref a load of jip as you do as a fan, like. But yeah, so that would have been my first game at St James's, and then I've only ever seen them once after that, and unfortunately we got beat 1-0 by West Brom, and that would have been the year after. We got beat 1-0. I think Rondon scored quite ironically, and then obviously he came to us after, thank God. But I do miss him as well. But yeah, that would have been a second game with St James's, and we were up with the gods in the Lisa's end, so we were very 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 close to the away fans. And see, to be honest, I'd never really noticed. Like, 'cause I noticed it when I was down in the Lisa's end, like a lot of fans giving them jip, but yeah, it's tense up there, like, and you're so close to them fans, and there's only like a few stewards holding these all back, so for me that was quite a good experience as well up at the gods, and it was a great view. Um, I've always noticed, as I say, a lot of fans that back me up on this one. The last player off the pitch every single time I think is Jamal Lascelles. So for me, he's been probably my like favorite captain in the club, other from Shearer obviously. But yeah, it was quite good in that sense. So that would have been probably my main experiences at St James's and stuff like that. So yeah, I have seen them again. I seen them last pre-season when Rafa left us before last season. I seen them play Bohemian in Dublin, um, and it was good. I think again we won 4-0. I remember Christian Nazi scoring a pen, um, and it was quite good. It was with my brother-in-law and my nephew. So yeah, and they actually rushed the pitch trying to get, but the players were for having them. I don't blame them, like, because a lot of the Irish boys ran, and I think a few of them got pictures of Rafa ran straight into the dugout, and don't blame him, like he would have got swarmed. But yeah, my nephew got a few photos with them after when they were on the bus. Like, I think Mohamed Diame stopped for everybody. You remember that hero? And he stopped for everybody. Like, he seemed to be very very humble. I do remember a few of the players, Kieran Clark, because obviously it was, well, he's originally he was born in England, but his father's Irish. He, funny enough, stopped and signed a few Irish jerseys as well. So yeah, that would have been like sort of the background for me for Newcastle. As I say, like, in regard to like favorite players, it would have been Shay Given, because I was a goalkeeper during my youth, like proper youth, and then I turned into a right back over the years in my local club, and then I haven't played football boys for guys about maybe 4 or 5 years, maybe even longer, maybe 6 or 7. So, not that I've loved the sport and I love everything about the sport, and to be honest, the dream was to be, obvious, just every kid's dream, and especially around the club in Newcastle, is to be a fan. So yeah, of course, for me it was a dream to step on that pitch and see the way the team plays, but unfortunately it wasn't to happen. So yeah, like a dream job is to get anything in football, and like even as I say, I'm starting this podcast even just to talk about it, because I have friends I could talk about football for hours and hours. It's a sport for me that you could literally rant and rave and talk just as much as you want. So yeah, like it's an amazing sport. Newcastle is an amazing. I can't reiterate how amazing of the club it is. I love it to pieces. But yeah, that for me would have been like the sort of the background of the club, and me getting introduced to the club, and then obviously my first game. So I've been over to Newcastle plenty of times. Like, the first time I went over to Newcastle was with my family, and maybe I would have been maybe 10 years ago. And the only reason we done it is because, as a lot of the Newcastle fans know, the players' entrance for the away guys is over. It's in the corner at the top of the Milburn stand, and you have like little plaques to commemorate, guys that have died. So we got one from my brother, and his is quite close. Funny enough to where the players' entrance is, and I get to the third one to the right. So we went over to see it for the first time, and it's scary. Like, when I went back with my friends, quite ironically, to just to party in Newcastle. It's quite like different to see where how much the club had changed. Like, back then, there was Shearer's Bar, there was that wee cafe where the terrace bar is now. They didn't have that plaque up, and I know they don't have that plaque up anymore, because St James has got a wee bit of a vamp. But beside the whole ATM, that wasn't there. They did do quite a bit. And then when I went back, by myself over the tune, and so it was quite different for me to see. So yeah, it was a brilliant experience. Excuse me. I'm a bit nervous, guys, because if anybody doesn't know, I've got a podcast with my friend. It's called Irish Impulse, and we talk about a load of other stuff. But I'm usually a lot more easier because he's got me to sort of bounce back and bounce off him. So sorry if I'm jittering or you hear the cracks in my voice and stuff. It's first episode, so I'll get there eventually. Rome wasn't built in a day, but yeah. So in regard to like how I feel now about the club, again, I've got tattoos of the club on me. So unfortunately, it's the thing that's never going to die. I do buy the kit every season. Some of it is off Big Mag, big fat Mike. But the less said about him, the better. And we'll talk about him maybe in another episode. We'll get that sorted. Obviously, talking about the takeover. But I just sort of wanted to like talk about my memories of the club. So because I don't really want to get in straight away of my view of the takeover. Obviously, I think all the Newcastle fans' views are all the same, get it over the line and stuff. But again, that'll be a different episode. So for me, I'll probably talk about like my favourite sort of games and stuff, and favourite players from the past, and obviously like your favourite managers. For Bobby, obviously being number one for me, as it's sort of growing up. Bobby would have been the one I would have grew up with. I wouldn't have seen Shearer. I would have remembered Shearer a lot of his goals, and I'll never forget the last goal he scored, obviously against them Mackin Bastards in Sunderland. But yeah, so um, in regard like a favorite game, personally, my favorite game, God, in Newcastle, it's really really hard not to look by that Arsenal 4-4 and Tiote, especially RIP Tiote now. But it's really really hard not to look past that Tiote goal and the 4-4. We were 4-0 down in the first half an hour. I never forget. I'm like checking up on the highlights and just thinking this is going to be a 7 or 8-0. We're going to get tanked, and then got into half time. I think it was 4-1. And then that Tiote goal, as I say, it'll always go down in history. So yeah, like if that would be probably one to look, because there was loads. I really do have loads. Like I'm even thinking of one in the championship where that wonder Mohamed Dahame goal, like that he knew nothing about. Again, quite ironically, was what won us the championship title like a couple of years ago. There's so many. Like I'll never like my favorite player in the squad now would be the captain, the skipper Jamal, and I'll never forget that goal. I think it was like a second or third goal for the club against Brighton in the championship. That absolute wonder header. So yeah, there's plenty of happy memories, and then of course there's plenty of sad ones like them Sunderland relegating us. For me that was. And I'll happily admit, I did. Did I cry? Oh yeah, I did. I cried. Of course I cried. My son, so my club went down. Like it would have been, they would have been heavily invested in the club back now. Wouldn't have been back then when we went down the first time. So I do remember it, but I wouldn't have been as emotionally attached to the club as I am now. So yeah, that for me probably would have been my saddest memory. I cried, and I'm not gonna lie, I was very very close to crying when the news came out in Sky Sports that we weren't gonna renew Rafa's contract. That for me was quite a tough one to sort of hold on to as well, because he was the first person, in my opinion, since I became a big fan of the club, that's brought the fans and like some sort of hierarchy to the club. He was the only manager, in my opinion, that brought a bit of love from the fans to the manager, and obviously we've never, in my opinion, even when Eddie Shepherd owned us, in my opinion, we've never had that like feeling of the board. The board is the same passion as us. Like I don't think you'll ever get that in the club, to be perfectly honest, because I don't think it's as you know yourselves, it's all money. So all the guys want to see is money, and that's why I think, as I say, the Saudis are looking at us, because we do obviously pump our money back into the club with season tickets and buying actual shirts and kits and memorabilia anyway. But yeah, for me, I think losing Rafa was the killer. It was for me. It was sucked a lot of passion out for me. I was like thinking, what's the point if they're not going to invest their time in the club? Why should I? But the players go out and change their mind about that every week, and well, they sometimes don't. Sometimes they may just like, that's it. I don't want to look at this sport anymore. But yeah, no, that one was quite a killer. Like, and I have a lot of, as I say, my fiance's family's all Liverpool fans, so I was obviously giving them jip because they did treat, in my opinion, treat Rafa quite badly. So obviously, we loved him and fell in love with him and still do love him. But as I say, he's out living a happy life in China. So well, I wouldn't say it's happy, but he's currently with the current pandemic, but he's out there living his life. So yeah, like I just trying to think. I've got a couple of things written down what I want to talk about, and as I say, Rafa was one of them. And so for me, as I say, he was the only manager that brought the fans as close to the of some sort of hierarchy in the club as the only me for me is the only manager that's done it. So yeah, I also wanted to talk about like my opinion, what's my all time Newcastle starting 11. So this one I think is where I would like to get a bit of feedback from you guys, just to see what you think as the majorities. I know there's a lot of you guys that have watched Newcastle a lot longer than me and would be bigger fans than me, but I just wanted to maybe get your opinion on that. So for me, I'll start it off in nets, as to say Shea Given. It's not even. I think that would probably be 95% of Newcastle fans' goalkeeper. He was an absolute. He was a brick wall. He wasn't a big lad. Like I think he was only like 5'11", 5'10". He wasn't a big lad, but he had a great agility and he could claw the ball out of the net in no time. And as I say, being from Ireland, he saved our asses plenty of times in internationals. So yeah, Shea Given would definitely be the goalkeeper, has to be, and I don't really think a lot of people can argue that one. In regard to right back, see, to be honest, guys, this one is quite controversial for me. Because he could go as like I fell in love with DeAndre when he first came, and especially under Rafa, he was an absolute unit, bombing down the wing and bombing back, and he's not great. He's not the worst defensively, but he's a brilliant going forward, and he's just got pace to burn. But this one I think is going to cause probably a bit of controversy. I'm going to go with Stephen Carr. Stephen Carr for me always gave you 110%. Yes, he was a bit lackluster. Yeah, he was a bit useless at times, and he was old when we got him. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Stephen Carr. For me, he was more. I'd be like Rafa in the sense. I would rather a solid defensive team. Like you say, you don't concede goals, you don't lose games in my eyes. So that would be my philosophy as a manager, but it's quite an easy one. But yeah, so I'm gonna go with Stephen Carr. In regard to centre backs, we've had some wonder centre backs over the years. And for me, I'm trying to think. I'm gonna have to go for Jamal Lascelles because it's more on leadership than ability. Like, his ability is brilliant, in my opinion. He deserves an England call up. Again, I would love to hear that from the Geordies standpoint, and actually all of England, because for me, he's been overlooked for the last 2 years. Like especially the year that Rafa took us to 10th, when he wasn't in the side, you could physically see the difference that like his leadership, his dictation, his rearranging the line, telling the line to push, drop back, for me. So he would be the number one for me, is in regard to leadership. There's some honourable mentions. Colaccini, obviously, one was a great servant, and Colaccini wasn't a vocal captain. He was a captain that showed it on the pitch. So for me, Colaccini's an honourable mention. I'm going to have to give him an honourable mention. It's because he was a local lad and he was an absolute funny. He was Stevie Taylor. Never forget that time he was bouncing in front of Begovic in Stoke, and Kabay scored that goal. That was hilarious. So I'm going to give Stevie Taylor a mention, but for me it has to be, we sold him to Real Madrid, Jonathan Woodgate. So again, guys, if anyway I get all this facts wrong, just don't be afraid to correct me in it, because I know, as I say, I'm not a big fan. I'm more in regard to the recent team than the locals, but I have been a fan for years and years and years. So I am going to go for Jonathan Woodgate. As I say, I think his career plummeted after us. Like, he went and he left, and he had a absolute horrendous time in Madrid. As I say, a lot of English players do. I think the only English player that really had a bit of joy at Madrid would have been Beck, in my opinion. But yeah, so we'll go for that. And then left back, see, it took me ages upon ages, and like I wrote my notes written down here, and who I thought was my best left back, and I could not pick one. So in that sort of sense, I'm going to play three at the back. So I'm going to play three at the back. So I'm going to be Jamal Lascelles, Stephen Carr, and then Jonathan Woodgate, Jamal being in the middle. So again, I think that's going to cause a bit of controversy, especially with Stevie Carr and Jonathan Woodgate in the line. So I'll move on to the fine. So you got your wing backs, or two wing backs, so guys you can push forward and push back. So for me, my right winger is going to be Ben Arfa. So the only reason why I'm picking Ben Arfa, now I know I'm playing three at the back, and the wing backs in an actual formation would push back as well. I know Ben Arfa didn't have any defensive capabilities. He very rarely went back, but give that guy the ball, and he could do absolute wonders with it. Absolute wonders. So yeah, for me, Ben Arfa has to be a right wing. So then we're gonna go on to centre mid. So left centre mid. Um, Again, some honourable mentions. Like Kabai, um, would be one of the honourable mentions that I think would give. We've had some wonder midfielders, but I'm putting him in here because he was a unit. He was a beast, and when he scored goals, again he scored them like wonder goals. And I'm going to say it's Czech Tiote, R.I.P. big man. A lot of fans gave him a lot of stick. Yes, he wasn't a quick lad. He wasn't a quick lad. But in my opinion, he busted his balls every game. He was always pushing. He always was running back. He was busting boys. Did he love a red card? Of course he did. That's sort of in the position that he was in. He had to do that. So yeah, in my opinion, yeah, he was a bit of a beast. But I'm going to give him the one in there. So it's centre mid. So right centre mid. I really struggled with this one. So I'm going to sort of think again, because I've wrote down here Gary Speed, but from what I can remember, was Speedo not a left mid? See, I think he was. So I'm going to put him in at left mid, and I'll come back to that centre back position. So again, I'll relay the team from start. So you got Shay Given, you got Stephen Carr, you got Jonathan Woodgate and Jamal Lascelles, you got Hatem Ben Arfa, Czech Tiote, and then you have got in the wing, you've got Gary Speed. Now, I think you know how the two strikers are going to be. So I'll get the strikers out of the way because, in my opinion, they're really easy to get. Alan Shearer and for me, Shola Amiobi. Big Shola. Now I know a lot of people are going to give a stick about Shola, but this is mine, and as I say, it's my opinion, and a lot of it doesn't come down to stats, in my opinion, guys. It's like it's the way I felt for them at the time and what I think they brought to the club. And there's a lot of them there. I know Stephen Carr is going to get a lot of stick. He did treat us like shit, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm going to go with Sholo just because he was a legend, he was an icon, and he's still part of the club in a sense of, in the academy. And he's around the club, and he'll always be around the club. And I think he's Newcastle through and through. And I don't think anybody can argue that because the man was an absolute icon. So yeah, that for me, and obviously Shearer he just needs to be called GOAT, greatest of all time. Anybody that wants to argue that case that Shearer is not the best Premier League striker to ever grace the league, hit me up, follow the Facebook page, and I will happily argue with you. It's just the Irish mag. Because anybody that says, for example, Henry, Aguero, Rooney, tell them to hit the bin. And I will argue with them because Shearer was an icon and an absolute pedestal. He was prestige. And there's just too many words to describe Alan Shearer. And you just can't think. You would love to know what would happen if he was to be a local lad and who would have stayed at the club from his youth the whole way up to where he obviously became. But I think, especially, at Blackburn, I think that's what probably made him that just that wee bit better. But yeah, for me that would have been Shearer, Shearer and Shola, and as I said, they did play a couple of times, so they did. So that for me would be them two. Now again, it's coming back to this centre mid spot. Now, I am going to cause a bit of controversy here because he hasn't been at the club that long, but in my opinion, the ability he has on the ball is second to none, and he can literally change. If this player turns up, he can change the game within 2 or 3 passes, and for me, it's Jonjo Shelvey. So my centre mid is quite a newish one. Again, I like to hear the newer guys, sort of the guys that have supported the club longer than me. I'd love to hear your best 11 for Newcastle. Maybe we have some that you thinking, oh my God, what is he thinking? Why this guy's from Ireland, he doesn't know what he's speaking about. And yeah, that could be the case, guys. As I say, I've really, really invested a lot into the club recently over the couple of years. So I would love to hear your background on it and give me your feedback. That would be amazing. I'd love to hear that. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna go with Jonjo. The only reason I'm going with Jonjo is if he turns up. Like I do love Jonjo Shelvey. I really do. Like, well, was a poster in my old room, of him on the wall. Like for me, if he turns up, if he's in the mood that day, he could rip any team apart with two passes. Like some of the passes he can spray, I'll never like you just see him pick his head up for 30 seconds and he could ping a 40-yard pass right into your fucking chest. Like he was amazing and he still is amazing and he's quite a good servant of the club. And I like the way he is vice captain of the club as well. And for me that's quite a good thing. Um I don't think he lacks a leader. I think he does lack a little bit of leadership compared to Jamal. For me, I like a captain that comes out and speaks publicly in the change room. I don't want him on the backs in the corner and shows it through his ability on the ball. Even though Shelby would inspire a lot of the players, in my opinion, with his passing and stuff. But yeah, for me, that would be my midfield. So I actually, I think I might have missed one if I'm not mistaken because I wrote it down here. So that is Shay Given. You've got Stephen Carr. You've got Jamal Lascelles and Jonathan Woodgate. You've got Hatem Ben Arfa, Cheick Tiote, Jonjo Shelvey, Gary Speed, Shola, and Shearer. I'm missing the centre mid. Oh Jesus! So I'm gonna go for Damien Duff. Now this is more based on his time at the club. He was quite a good servant of the club, and he was Irish. So, and again, he had an absolute wonder left foot. Actually, I'm actually going to scribble that out. You know who I'm going to change Damien Duff to? Now, I think a lot of guys will agree with me. Laurent Robert. I'll never forget that free kick he scored against United about 35 yards out on the right hand side. And an absolute peach. Like, any Newcastle fans that know Laurent Robert, he had, in my opinion, the second best left foot in the world. Obviously, the best is Messi. But for me, that's quite a big statement. You give Laurent Robert a dead ball situation, put him over it, and for me, I would bet my life on him burying it in the top ends. He was an absolute baller, and again, he was an absolute genius of the game. So yeah, that would be my Newcastle 11. Um, and that for me, guys, is it's going to be my first episode. So I'm going to try and keep all episodes around half an hour. And as I say, I have a YouTube channel. It's just the Irish Mag. I'm on Spotify at the moment and just Anchor, but I am working on getting this on a lot more. Excuse me, a lot more, um, platforms. Tell me how you think, guys, in regard to audio, the audio and stuff, and how you think I got on. As I say, I'm not going to say my first episode is always going to be great because I know it's not. I know I was quite jittery and you can hear it in my voice. And there's a few things, as I say, I discussed and might be a cause a little bit of controversy in a lot of Newcastle fans' eyes. And I do expect that. As I say, we're all different in our sense. But yeah, guys, I'm going to try and keep like 2 episodes up a week. And as I say, I got a Facebook page if you want to follow it. And if any of the local Newcastle supporters want to help me out in regard to sense and sharing me about and maybe try and get me in contact with somebody in the club or anything like that, just to give us a hand and just let me know how a little bit of feedback as I'm all I'm looking. It's really all I'm looking. So, as I say, I'm going to share this on my Facebook page, the Irish Mag, and as I say, feel free to give me feedback in regard to send the Facebook page at my message. And anything at all, guys, you can think of. In the next episode, I will probably go on to talk about the Takeover. Oh, so maybe there's a lot of different fans in the English League. I want to hear that. But yeah, so guys, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope, as I say, we get football back. Most importantly, God, as I say, a lot of fans miss it, and I know that any Newcastle born and bred guys and still living there and season ticket holders are missing it. They're probably arguing with wives and girlfriends and husbands, and so yeah, as I say, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope we get the season back underway. Again, follow me on YouTube, Spotify, Anchor, any platform to say you can listen to me on. Subscribe and like, and please follow my other podcast, guys. Like, give it a share and a like. It's Irish Impulse Podcast, again with some of my friend Connor, where we discuss other sort of topics and stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna love you and leave you. Whole way the lads, and peace.